What if we were cells in a larger being? In this story, we'll take you on a journey through the layers of reality. Right now, somewhere inside your body, a single liver cell is quietly doing its job. It has no idea it's part of you. It doesn't know your name, your thoughts, or the fact that you're watching a video right now. It just performs its function, completely unaware of the staggering complexity it's helping to build. So here's the question that's been keeping scientists and philosophers up at night for centuries. What if we're doing the exact same thing? What if humanity, with all its cities, governments, and grand ambitions, is just as oblivious to some larger structure as that liver cell is to you? This isn't science fiction. It's a real idea that sits at the strange intersection of biology, physics, and philosophy. And once you see the evidence laid out, you'll never look at the night sky the same way again. Your body is made of roughly 30 trillion cells, and every single one of them is, in a sense, alive on its own. They eat, they breathe, they reproduce, and they die. A neuron firing in your brain has no concept of the thought it's helping to create. A skin cell has no idea it's part of a hand that's holding a phone. Each cell is locked inside its own tiny reality, doing its one job, blind to the organism it's building. Now, zoom out, way out. Humanity behaves a lot like a colony of specialized cells. We have farmers, builders, scientists, and leaders, each one playing a narrow role inside a much larger system most of us will never fully see. We build cities the way cells build organs. We form economies the way bodies form circulatory systems. None of this proves we're cells inside some cosmic being, and no serious scientist is claiming that. But it raises an uncomfortable question. If a cell genuinely cannot perceive the body it belongs to, how would we ever know if we're in the same position? It turns out nature already has a habit of repeating itself at every possible scale. And that's not a coincidence dreamed up by philosophers. It's measurable. Structures called fractals show up again and again throughout the physical world, and a fractal is essentially a pattern that looks similar no matter how far you zoom in or out. The branching of a tree looks like the branching of your lungs. The path of a river delta looks like the branching of a lightning bolt. Even the way blood vessels split and split again echoes the way galaxies cluster across unimaginable distances. Nature seems to be working from the same blueprint over and over, just at wildly different sizes. And this is where things get genuinely strange, because in 2022 researchers, an astrophysicist and a neuroscientist, decided to actually test one of these comparisons instead of just speculating about it. They compared the network of galaxies stretching across the universe, known as the cosmic web, to the network of neurons inside the human brain. What they found wasn't just a vague visual resemblance. The statistical patterns lined up. Both networks showed what's called small world behavior, meaning any 2 points in the system, whether they're 2 neurons or 2 galaxy clusters, can be connected through a surprisingly short number of steps. The numbers themselves were eerie, too. The human brain holds somewhere around 86 billion neurons. The observable universe contains an estimated 100 billion galaxies. Strikingly similar orders of magnitude. When the researchers calculated how much information each system could theoretically store, they landed on roughly 2.5 petabytes for the human brain, and somewhere between 1 and 10 petabytes for the entire cosmic web. In other words, the storage capacity of everything you've ever experienced in your life is in the same ballpark as the storage capacity of the structure holding every galaxy in existence. None of this means the universe is literally a brain, and the researchers themselves were careful to say so. The forces shaping galaxies and the forces shaping neurons are completely different. But when two systems built from entirely different physics, end up organizing themselves in such similar ways, it suggests something deeper might be at play, almost as if complexity itself has a favorite shape it likes to take, regardless of scale. This pattern doesn't stop at brains and galaxies either. Zoom into an atom and you'll find electrons orbiting a nucleus. Zoom out far enough and you'll find planets orbiting stars, and stars orbiting the centers of galaxies. At a glance, it looks like the universe is just nesting the same structure inside itself, over and over, like a cosmic set of Russian dolls. But physicists are quick to point out that this resemblance is mostly an illusion. The force holding an electron in place has almost nothing in common with the gravity holding a planet in orbit. The math, the scale, the underlying rules, all completely different. So while the shapes echo each other, there's currently no evidence that these levels are actually nested copies of one another in any literal sense. Still, the fact that totally unrelated forces keep arriving at the same basic shape is, at minimum, one of the more curious coincidences in physics. If layered realities feel too speculative, cycles are a much safer bet, because cycles are everywhere. Day turns to night. Seasons turn over. Your own body runs on circadian rhythms you can't even consciously control. So it's not a huge leap that some physicists have wondered whether the universe itself might run on a cycle far larger than anything we can directly observe. The Nobel Prize-winning physicist Roger Penrose has spent years developing a theory called conformal cyclic cosmology, which proposes that what we call the Big Bang wasn't the beginning of everything, but rather the start of one chapter in an endless sequence. In Penrose's model, each aeon of the universe eventually thins out into nothing but radiation, and that emptiness mathematically becomes indistinguishable from the explosive birth of the next aeon. It's a genuinely brilliant idea, and Penrose has pointed to faint circular patterns in the cosmic background radiation as possible scars left over from the universe before ours. The catch is that most cosmologists remain unconvinced. The evidence is thin, the predictions are disputed, and the standard Big Bang model still explains the data more cleanly. But the theory survives because it tackles a real, nagging problem. Why did our universe start out so absurdly, improbably ordered, instead of as pure chaos? Then there's the idea that takes all of this in a completely different direction. Back in 2003, the philosopher Nick Bostrom proposed something that sounds like a movie plot, but was actually a serious piece of probability reasoning. He argued that if any civilization, anywhere, ever becomes advanced enough to run detailed simulations of conscious minds, they would likely run an enormous number of them. And if that's true, then statistically, a randomly chosen conscious being is far more likely to be one of the many simulated minds than the rare original. Bostrom never claimed we're definitely living in a simulation. He framed it as a trilemma. Either civilizations like ours almost always go extinct before reaching that level of technology, or advanced civilizations choose not to run these simulations even if they could, or we are, in fact, inside one right now. Even Bostrom himself estimates the odds at under 50%. But the argument has proven remarkably hard to fully dismiss, which is exactly why physicists, philosophers, and tech billionaires alike keep circling back to it. Long before any of this modern science existed, ancient traditions were already wrestling with the same basic intuition. Hindu philosophy describes Indra's net, an infinite web where every single point reflects every other point, a universe built entirely out of interconnected layers. Buddhist thought leans on a similar idea, suggesting that nothing exists in true isolation, and that every part of reality is woven into every other part, whether we notice it or not. Even Western philosophy has flirted with versions of this, From Leibniz imagining the universe as an infinite stack of self-contained monads, to modern systems theorists describing reality as a hierarchy of nested holes, where every hole is also a smaller part of something bigger above it. It's strange, and maybe a little reassuring, that people separated by oceans, centuries, and entirely different starting assumptions kept landing on the same core image, using nothing but observation and imagination. So where does that leave us? Right now, there's no confirmed proof that humanity is a cell in some cosmic body, that the universe is endlessly recycling itself, or that we're living inside someone else's simulation. What we do have is something almost as compelling: real, measurable evidence that the universe organizes itself using the same patterns again and again, from the folding of your brain to the structure spanning billions of light years. Maybe we're not meant to fully see the shape we're part of, the same way a single neuron will never understand the thought it helped create. So, we'll leave you with this. If you had to bet, would you say reality is just one single layer, this universe and nothing more? Or do you think there's something bigger out there that we're simply too small to perceive? Let us know in the comments. And if this kind of mind-bending rabbit hole is your thing, make sure you're subscribed, because we go down a new one every week.